possible.
We sent him a coworker for farmersonly.com and made him a
Do
whole
they send
thing.
magazines?
No, I wish.
All right, Kickstarter. Before we get into the meat, what have your guys' experience been with the Kickstarter platform? Have you ever crowdfunded anything? Austin, I know you have. So
Mighty number 9.
how'd that work out?
Not well. I've kickstarted a lot. Bloodstained. I
Still
kickstarted
waiting on
Broken
that.
Age. I did the Fig for Psychonauts 2.
Oh, really?
Kickstarted a couple
Okay.
podcasts.
Wait, you can do that?
Well,
Fucked up.
now it's Patreon, but
And yeah, now it is Patreon. Chris, you ever kickstart anything?
No. I don't support anybody.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
to
By the way, I support Hot Button Podcast.
Well, I know you funded the Amplitude reboot as well,
Yes.
which I also did, and I did eventually get my backer kit when that game came out.
still waiting.
After I yelled at them on Twitter. Yeah, I know that you didn't work out for you, did
No, I got the
it?
game.
Harmonix, if you're listening. Yeah, we're in the game.
Yeah, I just didn't get the shirt or the case or whatever I paid for.
That was like 100 bones. That wasn't.
It's whatever. I'm over it.
I think I only kickstarted that. Maybe one other thing. I kickstarted the Freeze Pop album, which still isn't out yet after like 3 years. So not the best recommendations I guess we can give for the company so
no.
far. But I'm still on board with the idea of it anyway. I'm sure some people have handled it right. Bloodstain look cool, but that's, whenever the hell that comes out. But today we're here to talk about a project that sure as hell did not go well. This is Hot Button. I am your host, Randall Beatrice, and I am here as always with Austin Blakesley
Yo.
and Chris Anatuano.
What's up?
And this is the Ouya episode. Ouya. I like that
Ouya.
name.
Is it named
Ouya,
after that
Ouya.
outline from that 90s Al Pacino movie, Scent of a Woman?
Your
Yes.
cuts are getting a little
Ouya.
But the Ouya was a massively funded Android-based micro home console that aimed to turn gamers into developers. It was cheap.
Classic.
Yeah,
you know
it's
who's
whatever-
the best at developing games?
That's what we've
The people
always-
who suck at playing them.
That's what we've always wanted, right? It was cheap and affordable. It could be easily opened up and modified. It had its own exclusive built-in store, like app store. It even supported various media apps right out of the box. Every console was its own dev kit. No pesky licensing fees attached. No pesky closed platforms to deal with. They wanted to break all the barriers down. So why did it fail? Austin, sum it up in one word.
Android.
All right, so we're going to go through the history of this a little bit. July 3rd, 2012, the Ouya was first announced. The name was chosen from the beginning, first press release, but not much else was really known at the time. Other than that, it was going to be, as Austin said, Android-based. And that it was led by a woman named Julie Ehrman. I think I'm saying that right. I always make sure with my names. She was the CEO of the California-based Boxer 8 Incorporated, which would later become rebranded as Ouya Incorporated. 1 week later, as July 10th, an official Kickstarter was launched, complete with an in-depth description and video pitch, and all the info was out. So, you guys want to hear the deets of this thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
This is what the Kickstarter said?
This is the Kickstarter said, yeah. This is where I got a lot of my information from here. So here's the big bullet points come crowdfunding launch day. First is that it was revealed that the console would only cost $99 US. So 95 for you early birds out there. So
Wasn't it
jump
also like 120 or 30 if you got the one that had more memory or something like that?
Yeah, I think there were other SKUs, but I don't know if those were on launch day.
It was advertised as $99, but they
That was
eventually came out
yeah.
with one that had 16 gigs that was more.
Was that a different color too, as well?
I don't
think
know.
they
there was a brown one and a black one and
a clear one.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Except
They-
that sold a lot.
Yeah, and it worked, and it was fun to play. But they did have a working prototype with in-progress software and user interface that they kind of showed off a little bit. And there was a video, and the video, the way it was edited is there were some quick cuts of kind of concepts of what they wanted everything to look like. It's kind of hard to say that early on, really what that stuff was. But they also showed quite a few shots of their soon-to-be-doomed controller, which I will get to later. But yeah, I mean, the UI certainly seemed intuitive and snappy enough from their video.
Yeah.
But most importantly, everything that they were kind of showing seemed believable. Which is, like, you've probably heard about Kickstarter projects that, like, right off the bat, they're just pitching something that's, like, not real. I wish I had some examples on me, but there's a billion. There's so many.
It's like some kid in the Ukraine that's like, I want to build a gaming PC. Can you help me? I'm gonna do a Twitch from it. And then you're just like, oh, God.
But it seemed, it didn't seem like a scam anyway. But third, most importantly, we're going to get into the specs here of this thing. Well, what they would say anyway. I think the full stuff wasn't really out there until the actual units sort of made it into people's hands, but the information that they put on their page was that it ran on Android 4.0 and featured an NVIDIA Tegra 3 chip, along with 1 gig of DDR3 RAM, 8 gigs.
DDR, I used to play I knew that one. I used to play that in the arcades.
Did you play DDR3? DDR Max? 8 gigs of internal flash storage, an HDMI connection for support up to 1080p, 1 USB 2.0 port, 1 Ethernet port, and last but not least, internal Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities. Again, all believable. Sort of fits in with their philosophy that anyone can develop for it, and that it's, like it seemed like what $100 would pay for. But here, lastly and most shockingly, I will say, is that all the games on it were required to have some sort of free-to-play aspect, whether it be like a trial or a demo or whatever. This requirement, by the way, that they would later go back on and say, fuck this, and remove. But that was their pitch out of the gate.
All right, I'm going to dive into the specs a little bit more. Do you know what a Tegra 3 is?
You're just trying to make me look stupid on here.
I am.
Of course we don't.
It's not hard.
So Tegra 3 is a chip.
Oh, it's a cart. Oh, that's the Integra. I think. Is that a cart?
Tegra 3 is a chip made by NVIDIA, and it uses something called an ARM architecture. For a little explanation of what ARM...
the mini console, or like the mini PlayStation, right? Is it rearmed? Is that what they call
Yes.
it? All right. I'm trying to connect this
You're
to something
You're cutting ahead of me.
All right,
Okay.
sorry.
So an explanation of what ARM is. There are two types of computer processors, CISC and RISC. CISC is what you're probably familiar with. CISC stands for Complex Instruction Set Computer. This is what the Intel or AMD processor that you put in your fancy gaming PC would be. This is what it runs on x86 architecture, which is 32-bit version of Windows, or x64, which is the 64-bit Windows. This is what the PS4 and the Xbox One use.
Nice.
Right.
When they switched to x86. The other kind, I said RISC, stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computer. And it's one that a lot of people don't actually know, but it's one that powers much more things than just gaming PCs, essentially. Without getting too into it, because I don't really understand it all that well. I'm not an electrical engineer. It uses reduced instruction sets to save power, which reduces the amount of transistors. The two important things to draw from that is that it's easy on batteries, and you can make it real small.
It was pretty small.
Yeah.
I forget the actual dimensions. I think I had it written down somewhere, but you could fit it in your hand, theoretically.
Yeah.
I'm gesturing in a way that nobody could see, but you could hold it in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, he's got really tiny hands. That you can't see him.
These processors were used in every gaming device, handheld or console, all the way up to the PS4 and Xbox One. And this is like a theory, RISC. ARM is the architecture that powers most of these just because Google put it in Android. So anything that runs Android runs an ARM architecture and has an ARM processor. But a lot of people don't know that ARM is actually very old. It dates back to the 90s.
It is old.
Yeah. So here's some devices that are built on the ARM architecture and have ARM processors. The Nokia brick phones that we're all familiar with. The ones that played Snake.
Yeah.
Every Android phone under the sun. Every Chromebook under the sun. All Apple products that are mobile. iPhone, iPad, the Apple Watch.
A bunch of these at the stable.
Every other wearable like Samsung watches and Fitbits. And then...
So nothing important.
And then also... In terms of gaming,
nuclear missiles.
All of these gaming devices use the ARM processor, the 3DO. Remember that thing?
Man.
The Nokia N-Gage.
Multimedia.
And N-Gage QD. The Game Boy Advance. the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo 3DS, the Nintendo Switch, the
Jeez.
PlayStation Vita, the PlayStation TV, the NVIDIA Shield, the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, and the PlayStation Classic.
Yeah. I jumped the gun. I mean, I feel like our list would be smaller to try and name handhelds that didn't run on that thing.
The PlayStation Portable.
Real? Oh, okay. UMDs,
The
right?
PlayStation Portable used something called a MIPS processor, which was
Okay.
the same processor that was in the PlayStation 1.
Oh, strange.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe that's why that could emulate those games
Yep.
so well.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess
Also-
that was the era with the cell for the PS3,
Yeah.
so Sony was...
The Cell also a reduced instruction set computer.
Really? Why was it so hard to
was
develop
the,
for?
as was the Xbox 360,
Right.
and the Xbox and the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 and the N64 and the Nintendo and then the Super Nintendo and the
All-
Dreamcast and
all
the
the way
Genesis.
back
Yeah.
until the
But
original Palm cabinet.
also a bunch of shitty educational consoles like the Leapfrog things.
Oh, yeah.
Those also use ARM processors.
They look like Nerf-made
But-
tablets.
The thing I'm getting at here is that, and I'll let you get back to your explanation of the history, but the whole thing is that, like, a lot of people shit on the Ouya because it used Android, which is why I made the joke in the beginning that
Sure.
Android was the one. If they had done the work to make this thing work as advertised, I think it could have been successful.
Right.
But they just basically opened up a Nexus 7, the Google tablet.
Jailbroken.
They took it out, they made the board a little bit smaller, and they put it in a weird box, and then put an HDMI port on it and took the screen out. Like, that's all the
They were
Ouya
very
is.
proud of that. Yeah.
That's essentially what the Ouya is, and that's not coming from me. That's coming from the CEO, who said in an interview, if
Yes.
you take apart a Nexus 7, it'll look similar to our board.
She was pitching that like a good thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. that video is incredible.
Yeah.
Was that South or
South by Southwest.
South by
yes.
Southwest? But yeah, so we actually mostly just summed up sort of the hot stuff from their initial sort of pitch. We'll get into the actual like philosophy, because the whole like it's I think it's like a 4-minute video. It seemed pretty genuine. Like and I'm sure it was, but like they talk about how basically in the video of how difficult and expensive game development has become. This is 2012.
Yeah.
And they had clips from a bunch of other like supportive devs echoing the company statements of wanting to give more freedom to the artists, anyone with ideas, regardless of the scale or background or genre, whatever. Hackers unite, no hurdles, send a message with your pledge, blah, blah, blah. They showed footage of Minecraft running on that thing. There were partnerships with Twitch so you could watch league matches. What more do you want?
Yeah.
You telling me there was a device that ran Minecraft?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Now
I don't buy it.
the two odd things that I noticed in that pitch video that I thought were funny was the emphasis on the controller. Like, there is tons of talk of that thing in there, which is strange to me considering if you were making an open platform to use anything, wouldn't you use, like, I don't know, an Xbox controller? Like, why did they want to bundle a controller in there to begin with? Like, they were pretty much talking about the importance of that controller, like, so much in that video, but why did
They wanted to control the entirety of the game experience. That's also from that interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
And second, all their talk of how people love gaming on their TVs, but that mobile internals were the future. Which, yeah, I mean, that's the future for, you know, like, yeah. So,
The best YouTube comment I saw on the video of that interview was just the portability of a console, the power of a mobile device.
yeah, which also made a joke earlier about, oh, it's the Switch, but backwards. Like, they really predicted so wrong. It's great. Because this past generation only proves that people still like big home consoles and PCs. Like, the PS4 selling pretty fucking well as the games, so which kind of goes against their whole belief that the console market is pushing developers away, which is like kind of how that sort of starts. They're just like, because they want to bring everyone to this platform, but after reading the full campaign statement, which was rough in my opinion, they were like, did you read that? It's there's like really lame references to old games. They're like quoting about, like, there's like a joke about your princess being another castle, and it's like eye rolling. It's really, and then there's these really like the quotes like, it's time to bring back innovation and experimentation and creativity to the big screen. Which, like, fuck you. Like, game developers, that was around the era, like, that stuff was, like, booming. Like, people were making really awesome shit. It was released
in the same year as BioShock Infinite, Last of Us, and GTA 5.
Bad year for games.
Just for a little bit of context on that
like,
one.
It's just like...
What color is the Ouya? Because I'm going to get a color that hat that says "Make consoles great again."
Just like a cube hat, too. It looked like those cheese hats that they wear in Wisconsin. But it all seemed like a lot of these quotes come off as pretty tone deaf. I have this one quote here: "With all of our technological advancements, shouldn't costs be going down?" And it's like, no. What industry is that true in? Like they keep
everything's getting more complicated.
Yeah,
everything's getting easier to use. Everything's getting harder to make. Why isn't it cheaper?
I don't understand. There's so many resources. Like, and they keep talking about how gaming could be so much cheaper, like you said, and it's just like this is pre-VR and 4K entering the gaming space, so it was hilarious that, like, very shortly after that, the exact opposite happened. But again, like I'm reading through this fucking text, and there's so much of this talk of this world-class controller, which I really wish we had one here with us right now, so you guys could, like, feel what it's like.
I felt the controller.
You felt that controller? Okay,
yeah.
So I played an Ouya. I guess I should have pressed at the beginning. I played an Ouya at GameStop for about 30 minutes. Maybe... Yeah, I mean, it felt like 30 minutes. It might have been more like 15. But instantly, that controller feels bad. Like, I really wanted to buy one.
It kind of looks like the Steam controller, doesn't it?
A little bit. Yeah. And they were going for some of the same things. But the build quality of it feels worse than, like, a PDP or Pelican controller. Or Mad Cat. Like, it is the, how they say, like, this is the player 1 controller, this is the player 2 controller. Yeah. This is the player 4 controller. This is the
player way past 3.
It's I just wanted to have one sitting on the table, like, just to, like, make us angry as we keep reading through this. But, like, because I tried to just a little anecdote here. I tried to buy a Ouya, and it's hilarious because I was talking to Austin about this. The first guy, I found someone on Craigslist who was selling one. It was the only one I could find that's cheap, because for whatever reason, like, when tech companies like this fumble it, that stuff drops in price first. Yeah. The thing's useless, and then a little bit of time goes by, and then it becomes like a novelty, and everyone wants one to have it. Because
they stop making them.
Exactly, yeah. So you can't...
New idea. Let's
make it really
coming this
shitty.
fall, the Hot Button novelty box. We're gonna promise
Boy
a bunch.
You'll have to compete with the Soldier Boy content.
It's gonna be really. We're gonna promise a lot, then we're gonna fail, and then people will pay out to ask for it. And we'll be every Craigslist listing. So that's the thing.
Control the whole market.
Yeah, we control the whole market.
I told Austin I was trying to get one, and I think you said something along the lines of, like, how much would I be willing to pay for it? And it was the guy on Craigslist found was like $25, and he ghosted me. That was as far as I was gonna go, because that one shop around here had one for $50, but most of the ones on eBay are like over $100. Because everyone's like, have a piece of shitty gaming history on your shelf. But I did not get one, so bummer for everybody, especially you guys. Yeah. But, all right, so we're going to dive into this, before we go on, we're going to dive into this so-called gamepad real quick. They called it the Stradivarius of controllers. What does that mean?
What's a Stradivarius?
I don't know.
It's a guitar.
You want to Google that while I get into it? I should have. Yeah. That's the quote that they...
Stradivarius is is a type of violin.
Violin. Close enough. It's got strings. Is it just like a really good violin?
I hope so.
Built by members of the Italian family Stradivari during the 17th and 18th centuries, the quality of their sound has defied attempts to explain or equal it. That's it.
So what the fuck?
So they're not hyping this up at all.
No,
they are. They're trying to say it's such a good controller. Nobody will ever be able to make another one.
Yeah, but what, like, a weird random reference to use?
Like as if people funding that thing would know what the fuck that meant. All right. So the design for this thing was fronted by a man named Yves Behar.
That sounds right.
Okay,
yeah, that's like the Stradivarius of names.
But he was the designer of the Jambox, that Bluetooth speaker people like?
Love that thing.
Any Jambox
It
fans?
sounds
around here?
good.
Okay. I don't think he had anything to
It
do with that
doesn't
part.
sound good. I was being sarcastic.
Got me again.
I mean, it's designed.
Burn, Yave Ace.
It's designed well, but the internals suck. Does it sound like anything else you might know?
Aesthetically, I like the look of the console. This controller, though. All right, so this
It's like the dollar store violin of. All right, I'm done with
the,
that
fir-
joke.
the first act. So this controller, it essentially featured the same layout as kind of a standard Xbox controller, but the same placement of the joysticks and D-pad anyway. Even the face buttons and the color schemes were kind of the same, except instead of the A, B, X, and Y buttons, it read Ouya, I think, on the 4 colored face buttons.
Which was a decision made by Reddit. I don't know if you came across that.
I
in your
did, because it
research.
didn't have any... Or initially it was just 4 circles.
It was 4 circles that were different colors, and people were like, hey, dipshits, we're colorblind. And then they were like, oh, and then they had like a Reddit poll for what the button should be, and they
They
said...
had a Reddit poll. I'm glad it didn't end up like CUNT.
No, Reddit, not 4chan poll.
Oh, man.
So they decided on Ouya, and then they had another poll to decide whether or not the button should go clockwise or counterclockwise. Ouya.
You know, they spin the other way, and
Yeah.
I feel like if you handed someone a controller and then looked at the TV and it was like, "Yo, hit the U button," that would take. Well, especially because it shares A and Y, but they're in different places than the Xbox. So
No,
Yeah.
the Y is in the same spot as the Xbox. The A is in a different spot.
Yeah, okay.
But isn't
That makes
Nintendo
sense.
reverse though? Of
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
still kills me.
No, see that one doesn't bother me
Fuck,
for some
man, I
reason.
can't-
Yeah, that one doesn't bother me.
Really,
either.
the A and the B switching in
No,
places.
Or the X
because
and the
it's like
Y.
Nintendo's
X and
just
the Y,
like
yeah.
it's like something. It's like barely a gaming console. It's like it's a toy.
I mean,
You don't treat it the
like
same way.
B is back. Well, you know what Chelsea pointed out to me. We were watching the PlayStation. We were watching stuff on the PlayStation Classic.
That's your
and
dog, right?
Yeah. and she pointed out how like a lot of those old games still have the like if you play like or emulate it, like if you play Final Fantasy VII or whatever, it's like the initial button layout of the PlayStation was supposed to be that X, the cross was back all the time and
Oh yeah,
circles
that
forward.
kept fucking me up when I was trying to play Metal Gear on the PlayStation Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kept hitting start, and then when it went to new game, it kept going back to the start screen. I was like, "The fuck is happening?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's circle."
I mean, when you think about it, it actually makes sense, but
No, it
Yeah,
does.
it does, but also fuck them.
Think about like the way you hold a controller. Like, who couldn't have had the foresight to see that the one that's closest to the bottom would be the most
I know,
used?
they should have just switched the positions of them, but the only real difference here that they were promoting, and this is hilarious. This is from the video Austin showed me, was that it was going to feature a touchpad in the middle. So does that sound familiar?
Ooh.
Well, what was the exact exchange in that clip?
Oh
'Cause
yeah,
it's
she goes in this interview, which it's from South by Southwest in 2013, and the interview's by a guy named Joshua Topolsky. If anybody wants to look it up, it's a great interview.
He's great in this.
Yeah, I love that
so
guy.
cutthroat to the
But she's like, our controller is very unique, and she goes, it has a touchpad on it. You're not gonna find that anywhere else. And the guy just cuts her off and goes, the PlayStation 4 was just announced, and that has a touchpad on the controller. And she just goes, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like,
And then that's the end of it.
What if I just
Oh, no,
imagine
no.
a PR person backstage being like, "Oh shit, fuck."
She continues because he's like, yeah, and then she's like,
It's so awkward.
yeah, but they're not gonna make game. They might make the game for the Ouya and the PlayStation 4, but I know they're making it for me because I made a deal with them or something like that.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
You're
good
just like-
thing to happen.
You're just
when
like,
someone-
lady, calm down. You're gonna go bankrupt in a couple of years.
There were other quotes in there that I think they're like it's going to be laser precise and be weighted perfectly to everyone's hands.
There's another anecdote in that video where she talks about how one of the designers of the controller went to China to get it like manufactured,
okay.
and somebody else told him that it felt bad or something like that.
Yeah.
So then he went back to the drawing board, and he's like, I need to be able to beat the computer like 85% of the time in Street Fighter in order for this controller to be good or something. And apparently...
A game that doesn't use joysticks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean the old ones, but all right. So it worked for that guy. He passed the test.
I guess so.
Yeah. Or,
Maybe he's just really good at Street Fighter. I don't know.
but all this sounds fine, right? I mean, it should be because the controller was also priced at $50, which was half the price of the console itself.
And also the price of, well, a little bit less than
Than a
an
standard,
Xbox 360
yeah,
or
PS4
PS3 controller, and the PS4 controller and the Xbox One controller.
Yeah. So, not great. But we're actually going to get more into the... I'm not going to let loose on this controller. I'm going to get more into the controller later of, like, the actual problems with it. They're pretty... There's a lot. But more and more discussions around the open source stuff. I mentioned a little bit of their philosophy earlier. They kind of were very hard on this: no roadblocks, no ports, no fees or licensing from retailers or publishers or whatever, which I guess, like, you know, I get it. It sounds noble. I'm not going to read all the support quotes from people within the industry that were toting this because they'll read, like, ads. So it's fine.
Get yourself an Ouya.
Essentially. I mean, it's a Kickstarter, I get it, but, you know. But there was also more hacker talk. They really wanted that demo, that demographic, the hacker demo, because, you know, this is what they want.
What the fuck?
I know, there's so much
what
talk
kind of
that
demographic is that? They want, like, under 400 people on Earth who are legitimate criminal computer scientists.
Yeah,
that's why I do love them slinging that word around.
The people whose hobby is getting stuff that costs money for free. Let's get them as a customer.
They love paying for stuff.
They'll understand. And there was also, you know, more focus on streaming. Makes sense.
On the back of the Ouya, Zero Cool says the Ouya is real good and
Crash
stuff.
Override.
There are way too many hackers references on the show.
Is there? Not enough, I say. And that little silver box would also have a limited edition black metal brother for those special backers at the 140 tier, which may also have that boost in space that you were talking about.
I don't know.
Yeah. But, you know, you've got your options. I think that clear one's a dev kit, by the way. I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe it was.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for your eyes to roll so far in the back of your head that you pass out?
Yeah.
All right. So the tiers ranged that you could fund this thing, by the way. They ranged from $10 to $10,000. This also included the special elite tier where you funded $1,337. Yeah? Eh? Eh? But a lot of these higher tiers were fucking provided terrible incentives, like, in my opinion. Like, they were mostly just invites to developer private dinners and meetings and, like, the launch party. Like, like for, like, 10 grand, like, they're acting like, I mean, I don't even think they pay for your... Like, I don't think they'll fly you there.
No.
No, you have to get there, and then they'll, like, take you out to dinner.
It's a decent deal if you're, like, a developer who thinks you have a good idea for a game and wants to make it, and you're buying the Ouya to make games for it. I guess meeting and having dinner with the people that are designing the console could be a good in.
It's a lot of gambling to take on a Kickstarter console.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not worth it, I'm just saying. I get what they were going
I
at.
love the idea of hanging with developers, and especially, you know, the whole thing behind this is that you're going to be one, but I just think the money doesn't match up. That's, you know.
No. Yeah.
No, video game developers are not worth $10,000.
But also, by the way, they managed to sell out of all these, so yeah, you know.
Of the 10 grand ones?
Yeah. Thousands of dollars for a meal. Better be the best meal of your life. I don't know. People are dumb. But so the campaign launches. I forget, what was that initial date that I had?
August 8th.
August 8th. Okay.
2012?
Yes.
Okay.
It was in 2012. The word is out there also at this point too. Game and tech sites are covering it. They are asking for $950,000.
August 8th was the end date.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it was 30 days.
So it'd be July.
Okay. Or I think, yeah, as of August 9th at midnight, they needed to get $950,000, which I will give it to them as a pretty admirable and attainable goal considering the product, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how it did. They hit their goal in 8 hours, $950K.
Jeez.
Yeah, according to Kickstarter, it held the record for best first day performance of any project hosted on the site to date.
Jeez.
In that first 24 hours, it was said to have had a new backer nearly every 6 seconds. So what did they do? The Ouya company, they added more funding levels, of course.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? Money was still increasing, and they wanted to make as many of these as available as they could, so that seemed like a logical next step. When all was said and done, fast forward a month later, August 9th, they had raised $8,596,474
Jeez.
with 63,416 backers. making the Ouya at the time the 5th highest grossing Kickstarter in the website's history, and only one of 8 products to hit the $1 million mark. Now I think it's just sitting at a lonely 8. So, But speaking of 8s, that's pretty fucking commendable.
All right, let's give a golf clap for
the Ouya here.
Yeah, there's a lot of idiots out there that don't understand how products are made.
That's what I'm saying. One idiot every 6 seconds. It's crazy.
I should have said, by the way, that that extra money that they were collecting didn't go into anything. They put out like updates thanking everyone during the funding phase and wrote things like, tell us what you want the stretch goals to be, but they never actually added any of them. So I don't know. Kind of shitty, but whatever. I guess they used that money to go more into the costs of getting these out there, which we will find out that they didn't do a good job on that either. But these other updates that they were kind of they were pretty frequent with them for a while. They included a lot of back and forth feedback on various technical topics, the hiring of more new team members, partnerships with other developers such as Square Enix, Namco Bandai. They wanted to bring their products to the App Store, the built-in one. They said it would also include services like OnLive and Vivo for music videos. iHeartRadio was in. TuneIn was in. XBMC for their media player.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? But it's there. I set you up. I know. But
XBMC is cool.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's also open source, and you can put it on a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. How about OnLive? How do you feel about that?
OnLive's garbage.
The hot button console, by the way, is just a clear box full of Raspberry Pis, by the way.
Oh, now the facade's gone.
They're just duct taped together and not plugged into anything.
Just a bunch of loose ones in a box.
Comes with AOL Instant Messenger. Comes with comes with Vine.
Yo, it comes with 10 Zune ports.
Comes with Grindr. What's the app that you find other people to smoke weed with? I forget.
Weed maps? No, I think that's like a website to find good weed. The point is, you're onto something here. We need to start a console that has built-in random-ass apps.
Oh my god, that'd be so good. It's just preloaded with a bunch of random shit. Around this time also, after they were funded, there were interviews getting out there with Julie, the CEO, that maybe didn't seem like she totally knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
We already made a lot of these jokes earlier.
You said
but
emails?
I don't know if... yeah. You fuck.
To be honest, I didn't really hear you.
No, all right, that's fine. They, I don't know if you have any more, if you want to elaborate on that more, but I think we already kind of knocked a lot of these.
She's talking out of her ass a lot.
Because I felt bad because I watched that thing and I was like, she seems like kind of like she's on top of things, and then you're just like no, and then you showed me that thing. And I was like, oh crap.
Her whole design philosophy is she's like, I look around and I see all these people on their tablets playing things like Temple Run and Cut the Root or something. She said cut the rope wrong, which already pissed me off. But then she's like, and then I remember back in the day playing the Nintendo with my sister, and
she's name dropping.
Why can't we go back to those days? And the guy's like, and Joshua Topolsky, God bless him, I love this guy. He's like, we're in those days. Gaming's doing better than ever. Like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 and the Wii all just passed 100 million units. Like we're doing phenomenal right now. I don't know where in this market you think you're supposed to fit,
including game emulation is.
He's like, for instance, I just got done playing Fallout 3 again. I love it. I've put like 200 hours into this game. How are you going to provide experiences like that? Because she kept using the word immersion, and he was like, I was immersed in Fallout. How is an Android device going to provide the immersion that something like an Xbox or a PlayStation does? And she's like, we're not after that market. Those devices exist for those people. We're after the
customers.
Yeah. We're after the people that play the games on their mobiles, but mobile games are such a disposable experience, and like there's a market out there for people who want to play on the most immersive device in our house, the television, and like she just keeps going in circles where she's just like, mobile gaming is better, but consoles are good, but like the consoles we have aren't good because they're expensive and it's hard to develop
it's like
for
catching
them.
A little kid.
So I want to make mobile games for a console so that you have the immersion of a console but the budget of a mobile game, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And she's like, and I want to put the power into everybody's hands, and you're like, why?
Those 63,000 people.
The funniest part of all this is that the Ouya launched, and you'll get to this, but the Ouya launched in 2013, like I said.
Yeah.
And the Ouya launched a couple of months before the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One did.
Yeah.
And
their sales took a hit.
They beat them to market.
No, they took her philosophy and ran with it, and they're doing better than ever.
Yeah.
Like, because she was basing this whole thing on, like, it's so hard for indie devs to get on these consoles, which it was in the Xbox 360 and PS3 days. And then when the Xbox One and the PS4
I
came
have
out,
that stuff in there.
The flood doors opened.
And then with Switch, even more. Yeah. It's
her, like, she's not a bad person.
No.
But, like, her whole philosophy is just like, it's just like a kid's like, what if we had a horse with a horn on its head? And it's like a unicorn, and they're like, no, but I thought of it.
That's her next Kickstarter project.
Yeah, the Ouya. Come and buy a fucking
Oh, they also announced another little initiative here called the Free the Games Fund.
Which thing is hilarious.
This is so good. So March 28th, 2013, the first batch of units start to get sent out on time. Well, supposedly. I was about to give them that, considering most things on these platforms never hit their release marks ever.
Yeah.
So when I heard about these first batches going out, I was like, oh, maybe they at least got that. But then Austin showed me some sources earlier that state that they definitely did not manage to even do that.
So the March batch was like early dev kits and like people that paid for it early.
Right. Okay.
And those people got it on time. It was not until later, which I'm sure you'll get to, when the thing launched.
Yeah.
And it came out in stores and sent out to the people who didn't pay for early.
Which pretty
access.
shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some backers got their Ouyas, many did not.
It went to stores before it went to fucking backers.
Which, you want to know what else that happened with?
What's that?
The Oculus Rift, right? Yeah, wasn't that an issue with that as well?
Was that the Oculus? I can't remember.
I thought it was the Oculus Rift. I remember that being...
No, okay, so that wasn't the... Oculus did have a Kickstarter, and those people got it on time.
Okay.
What it was that you could pre-order the Oculus, and like...
Right,
I pre-ordered it, and like they had so many pre-orders that they kept staggering out the things. So it launched in March, but to me they're like,
they had a separate reserve.
You'll get it in May. Like we need time to make more units, and I was like, whatever. I understand that it's a tech product. You can't make them as fast as you can sell them or whatever. And then the middle of April rolls around, and I see an Oculus Rift sitting in Best Buy, and I'm like, you can make that unit, but you can't make mine till May. And then I called them up and cursed them off and canceled it and bought a PlayStation VR later that year.
Yeah, fucking A. That's so dirty.
Yeah, it's real dirty. Like, because the funny thing is, like,
I don't get it. What's the appeal there?
You've already got money from people. Like, you go after the
extra
you go after
money.
The people who didn't pay you.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. For some reason, I was thinking like you got paid, like, but no,
no,
you're
it's dirty. Yeah, like
yeah.
that's why. What's funny is like March 28th was when those first dev kits went out. It hit shelves months later, June 25th. So if there were people who kickstarted this thing in 2012 who didn't get it by June 25th, 2013, but like there were other people that could just walk into a store and buy one.
Fucking buy it. Yeah.
Like on the shelves of those retailers that they claim to hate so much. But what's weird is like before everybody's orders were fulfilled, these things were popping up. Like I saw them at not just game exclusive stores, but even like some electronic stores and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I even saw them. I saw one at Radio Shack.
I was about to say Radio Shack.
I know that joke writes itself. I want to ask you guys if you ever saw these kind of out there in the wild because you worked at a GameStop in 2013.
I saw them.
You saw? Did you get?
And I saw them at Target too.
Yeah. So their partners were Amazon, GameStop, Target, and Best Buy. Where they're big.
I remember seeing them.
I swear I saw one at Radio Shack.
Yeah, they had them there.
Okay.
But like their retail partners were those four.
Okay.
Those
are the big guys.
I definitely remember seeing them on Target and bottom shelf, and then I think we had maybe one or two.
Or could you
I worked
pre-order
at a
GameStop?
ghetto ass store. We barely got like the good shit. Like,
did you ever? I was really hoping you would have a story that you open a box. You're like, what the fuck is this?
That interview that we're talking that we keep bringing up because it's so good. That interview is right before it came out. I think South by
that was
Southwest
that close, huh?
It was like right before it came out.
Yeah, that interview reads like an early interview.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Like there's a part in the beginning of the interview where she's like, Joshua Topolsky's like, "Hey, raise your hand if you can back this on Kickstarter," and like he's expecting like everybody's hand to shoot up, and like 4 people raise their hand.
Ooh.
And then he asked her, he's like, how? So she talks about the pre-orders at GameStop and Amazon being open, and he goes, so how many units have you sold? And she's like, a lot. And he's like, will you give me a number? And she's like, no.
That was weird. Yeah, that was strange. Yeah, it's yeah. She was not prepared because it seemed like it almost seemed like someone told her that the questions were going to be screened or something, or she was just that confident. Yeah. Like she was just like ready to fucking drop the mic, and then some dude got real instantly, and she didn't know what to do.
I saw them. So fun fact about the Ouya. I saw them on all those stores. I saw them on Amazon. I saw them in Best Buy.
Like I said, there was a kiosk at GameStop.
I saw them in GameStop. I saw them in Target. Target specifically, at one point, put them out front and center in the electronics section, like on the counter where you buy shit.
Oh, weird.
And they knocked the price down to $50. And I was like,
oh, wow.
Yo, if this thing goes down to like
30,
I'll buy it. And then like I went back like a month later and they were fucking gone.
I doubt those stores got many. Like I remember at Best Buy I saw like 2 around the time that dropped. So do you remember that that Free the Games Fund I mentioned before? We're gonna get into this. So the Free the Games Fund, not to be confused with the other Game Jam contest thing that they ran for a short time, where it was like, you know, for up and coming guys to pitch their games to the platform. That seemed a little more, people knew how to organize that.
Yeah.
You know, despite the fact that I feel like that's more of a detriment to your indie game more than anything. But no, this is much more stupid. What this basically is that they made a call out to, and I'm surprised it didn't breach any sort of rules at the time. They made a call out to other gaming projects on Kickstarter that were looking for funding and said, hey, if your game hits the minimum target of $50K, then we will match that money, provided that the game remained an exclusive to the Ouya marketplace for at least 6 months.
Okay. That seems a little manipulative from the
it absolutely is, but it's also an insanely easy thing to cheat. Because, like, imagine if somebody's like, if you can, like, falsify evidence that you have $10, I'll give you a $10 bill.
Yeah.
It's like, wouldn't you just do anything to trick me into, like,
hey man, let me borrow $10. I'm gonna go over this guy. He's gonna give me 10 more bucks, and then I'll split it with you. 50,
yeah,
50.
Exactly. Yeah, like it was so strange.
Also, you had to, like, indie developers on Kickstarter had to know a little bit, like,
I'm sure the writing was on the wall a bit, but I think this was more for the lowest indie, like people who are funding projects that have no.
That's unfair because that's a really cool deal for a low-level indie company to get like totally fucked by.
Exactly, yeah. Because like what happened, like suspicions got raised almost instantly when the first 2 projects to reach this goal were revealed to have a small amount of backers, but that were pledging really high amounts. Isn't it through Kickstarter? It's just like they don't charge you immediately.
No, not until the project's funded.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, say you were funding a project, wouldn't you just tell your friends to be like, yo, go fund $5,000? I know you don't have it, but it's fine. You're not going to get charged.
Yeah.
Then they're going to pay it. So when they found out, they're like, yo, these 2 projects hit $50K. And then they would look it up and they're like, you only had a couple backers. Who are these people and where did this money come from? Because when they investigated those profiles, it was discovered that most of them not only never backed a project before, but it was also like a lot of the names were duplicates with avatars of celebrities. Like they were just gag accounts. But
this is what Ouya meant when they said they wanted the hackers to come to the console.
But this is my favorite story. Fucking one of the profile names of someone who funded was somebody from a missing persons case.
Oh my god. Fuck.
Not to assume anything, but I doubt anybody ran away to fund a Ouya game unless they got kidnapped and forced to do so.
Yeah, buy fucking Ouya. The only way.
So, word was pretty much out that people were artificially inflating their own projects in order to receive the extra money from Ouya, something that obviously violates the site's terms of service. But nonetheless, the company rejected any suspicion regarding the backing of these projects and providing the funding anyway. They were really desperate to get games on that platform. There's another moment in that interview that Austin keeps bringing up where someone was like, what's the key game for your platform that's going to bring people there? You know, like every time a new console comes out, they're like, what's the killer app, right? Like in the original Xbox, you had Halo. Like that was the thing that brought people. So they were like, what's your killer app? And she like didn't have one, and then at one point like looks off screen to like get a name of a title from somebody. I don't remember the game that she said in it.
Oh, it was like Stalag Fight or something.
But it was like clearly like wasn't like ready for.
Which the Ouya had a killer app.
It did, and I'll bring that up later too, which is funny. That's why I was kind of shocked that she didn't bring that up in there.
A killer app, by the way, that was funded as a part of this whole free the games
I did not
thing.
know that was part of that same fund. Okay.
When you get to that, I have a list of games that were funded through this system that were Ouya exclusive
that
for a
were
while.
Actually successful.
That are now very popular on Steam and other platforms.
Okay, because I have a list here of some failures.
Okay.
But here are some examples of how this turned out for some of these games. The first game that hit its funding target was a game called Elementary, My Dear, and it was suspended by Kickstarter for suspicious activity. So, didn't get very far. There was another football game that was funded by them, but then they were threatened litigation as they had no official rights to the NFL branding because it's held by EA. So that game didn't come out either. So that's pretty funny.
Hey, this is my game. It's called Google. It's a search engine.
I'm trying to think of like a parody of John Madden's football, but it would just be like another person. Like
Jan Bladden Split Ball. Come by it.
Jerry Rice's 50-yard line smash.
But everything basically exploded when a third project named Dungeons: The Eye of Draconis, which is like the most video game name, caused controversy by openly stating that a rich relative of one of the developers provided a substantial amount of the cash just so they would fit the $50K mark and have it qualify for the extra money from the fund. And like they were shameless about it. They're like, "Hey, you didn't say we couldn't do it this way."
No.
And then Ouya this time fought back and said no, and they removed the entire thing from the site.
If you got a rich uncle, just get him to pay for the whole thing. Why you gotta scam companies?
Yeah, it's true. But the response to this after like this whole initiative was not good. A lot of people thought the rules were fucked, which they were. So much that one developer, I think her name was Sophie Holden, removed her game Rose in Time from the Ouya marketplace in protest. This was after the console was, already kind of like going, and the other devs threatened to do the same with her. So a bunch of people were going to pull their games from the store if they didn't stop with this fun. It was only after this that the company changed the policies in the this movement to add a $1 per backer limit. So I don't know if the games we were mentioning they were probably after they changed these rules. But her game, Rose in Time, went back on the store. New games qualified under the new rules. And they even changed it so they would allow the exclusivity deal to allow releases on PC, Mac, and Linux as long as they stayed off the other consoles. And
this is
mobile
very
that they were
important.
competing with.
The staying off of mobile but being allowed to be on PC, Mac, and Linux is very important because that's where a lot of the games I have listed came from.
Okay. Which is funny because I'm sure they found much greater success once they were off the platform.
Good for them. Smart move.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we finished that little segment up, I think it's time we talk a little bit about the actual reception of this thing. Before we start, how do you guys think it did? How do you guys think it reviewed?
Well, considering that there's an Ouya in every home from here to Japan, probably very well, right?
Yeah.
Which she says in that interview, by the way. She's like, I want an Ouya on every entertainment center in the... Oof. Reception, here's what I remember. It has a garbage controller with squishy triggers that stick all the time, buttons that stick under the stupid faceplates. Faceplates that you have to remove in order to get to the batteries to change them.
It's like changing a game in the N-Gauge.
It has controller syncing issues.
Yes.
I remember
and input lag.
I remember that there was a workaround since it used Bluetooth and had a USB port on it. You could technically plug a PS3 controller into it through USB, and it would sync that as an Ouya controller. So a lot of people ended up using PS3 controllers instead of Ouya
okay, because
controllers.
I know
That's
they said
funny.
you could plug an Xbox controller into that USB and use it, but most of the games didn't support that feature.
No.
So
they had no social features whatsoever. No online for multiplayer.
The online was
friends.
also fucked out of the box. For a lot
no
of people.
friends list. No leaderboards of any kind. There's a very famous mobile game.
No achievements?
Yeah, no achievements. There's a very famous mobile game called Cannibal. I don't know if you guys have ever played this.
Was that the one that was Angry Birds before Angry Birds?
That was...
Cannon Brawl or something?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
But
Crush
the Castle.
Crush the Castle, yeah. Thanks, Newgrounds.
Yeah, but So there's a game called Catapult where you're a little guy running on rooftops and you have to jump over boxes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was like one of the first mobile games that kind of hit it big. And it was one of the first games on Ouya, but people bought it and they're like, the whole thing is it's an endless runner. You have to get as far as you possibly can. The Ouya version didn't have leaderboards.
So what was the point?
What's the point? And like Catapult was before you had to like pay money to upgrade your character so you can run faster and stuff. It was all about like getting further and getting on the leaderboards. And the Ouya version didn't have leaderboards.
No, dude, you take a picture, then you post it on the Ouya Twitter, and
then also the Wi-Fi chip in it was apparently garbage and would disconnect constantly and had trouble maintaining a connection. And the store was...
must be the same one on my Xbox One because...
and the store was full
flooded
with garbage. Yeah.
Oh,
you think Steam Marketplace
There was like apps like the fireplaces. It's just a fireplace. Like Rain, where it's just a screen with rain falling on it.
Yeah,
like,
one that's just, what is it, Bikini Ladies?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Whoa. Slow down, guys. I think we might need to get a new Ouya. Change my mind.
Yeah, it was bad. A lot of that is post-release. I'm going to talk a little bit about pre-release first, because out of the gate, in between the ending of the funding and to launch, there were some praises. Many people were still pretty skeptical. There were many that didn't even think that they could deliver the product at all.
Yeah.
PC Magazine ran an article by Sasha Sagan titled "Why Kickstarter's Ouya Looks Like a Scam." Not only critical of the console, but also crowdfunding things like this in general. It's actually a really great read. It's just a little lengthy, but the title is pretty to the point.
Yeah.
The summary is pretty much just kind of like, hey, concepts can be super cool, but actually building a reliable thing that like requires way more than just good ideas and intentions.
Yeah.
They bring up supply chain management, mass hardware, QA, other major company negotiations, which is part of why what we mentioned about the library not being great and the controller being shit.
There's a reason there's 3 consoles.
Yes, yeah,
you know what I mean?
There is. You can't just make your own and say put this on a shelf.
One of them's made by a 200-year-old company, and the other 2 are made by
tech
massive
conglomerates.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
totally. They bring up Pebble in the interview a couple of times,
which is very interesting. Because Pebble and Ouya met similar fates. And we can get to that a little bit later when you talk about the fate of the Ouya, but Pebble is actually a very good comparison to the Ouya because they were both things that were kickstarted with a bunch of money and people were like, this is such a good idea. And then they just...
I remember that blowing up.
It, and then, yeah.
There were some defenders, though, still during this funding process. Unreality Magazine basically did some diving of their own and said that flat out calling it a scam was a little bit of a stretch here, since a scam implies some sort of intentionally illegal or deceitful action, when it seemed more like...
I wouldn't say it's a scam.
No, it seemed like a legitimate business venture.
It just seemed like they sucked at it.
Yeah. Considering who they were partnering with, it just seemed like they were bad at it.
I also found an article from Eurogamer. Eurogamer... Digital Foundry, famous for doing tech dives on video games, and
famous for telling me to turn my ad block off.
Oh yeah, well yeah, but also they're the ones that like do that. They're like, you should play this on the PlayStation 4 Pro because it runs better on there, and here's the reasons why.
Yeah,
they did a deep tech dive before when the Ouya was announced, when the specs were announced, but the thing wasn't out there yet.
Okay.
They basically just
Did they build their own or just try to...
No, they got a bunch of equivalent Android devices, including the Nexus 7, and tried to run them with different games and be like, hey, this is what the performance of the Ouya is going to be like. And I think the closing thing of that paragraph is like, they're going to have to do some magic to make this thing competitive.
One of the first footages of a game running on that thing that I saw, because you'd think most of it is indie games, pixel side-scrollers or whatever. I saw Dirt. It had Dirt Rally on that thing. Mm-hmm. And... it ran bad.
A 360 game?
Yeah, and it's a good-looking game. Like it's like
I think it was a mobile version.
Oh, was it? Okay, I am sure they had to break it down a little bit here. Engadget, they praised the low cost of the device and the ease of hacking it. The Verge felt similarly about the openness of the platform, saying it had potential. However, both of them absolutely hated that controller. And as Austin put it, all these issues were like basically made games unplayable. Like even like the input lag was so bad. There's videos out there you can watch of people who are like hitting the A button to make a character jump, and it would be like a second off.
Sorry, I think you mean the O button.
fuck, man.
No, that's this one on the PlayStation.
Continue.
But they also said that the UI and the launch lineup were also basically shit. Like, you know, that like their final word at the end of this was the Ouya isn't a viable gaming platform or a good console or even a nice TV interface. So there you have it.
It's funny.
Kind of a man
because
without a country, this console right here.
I'm gonna bring it up now. I don't know. You're gonna get into it later, I know. But there's the one game, the Ouya's killer app.
Yes.
Was Towerfall.
Towerfall.
Have you ever played Towerfall?
It's fun.
No, it sounds familiar.
It's like an arena.
It was like it was
combat
kind of the birth of like the arena combat, like the.
Now you see a lot of them.
The 2D 4-player combat games like Samurai Gun, or they're all over the place.
Yeah,
now,
like it's just like you just sit with 4 people on the couch and you just like duke it out on a shared screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very dumbed down, like we're not dumbed down, but very like like picture like a Smash Brothers, except like they were always based around very snappy and quick and simple mechanics.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Towerfall was the one where you had a bow and arrow, and you had 5 arrows for it. It was a one-hit kill on everything.
Nice.
It was like you had like each player had 3 lives. And,
It's a very good game.
yeah.
But I remember a lot of the early reviews of the Ouya was just like, Towerfall's good. Everything else isn't, but Towerfall's good. Like the Polygon review, the one I remember watching specifically when the Ouya came out, because I was interested in it, was just like, Towerfall's good, but maybe wait till Towerfall comes out for another platform. And then I did, and I bought it on PS4, and it's a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. All right, so now let's get into these opinions post-launch, which, you know, well, we talked about a little bit already with some of the issues that people had here. So out of the gate, lukewarm. Not as awful as you would expect it to be. It kind of took people like a week or so to realize this thing is shit. But I'm exaggerating, maybe like a month. But that first sort of like initial response wasn't the worst.
Huh. That's actually surprises me.
Yeah.
funny anecdote. I found a video of a guy. So before the game came out in retail, they released it to, like you said, they released it to people who paid for early access. But there was still like an NDA on it, like you weren't allowed to post a review of it.
Wow, okay.
I found a guy who posted an early review of the Ouya because somebody bought the early backer edition and then sold it to Goodwill. And this guy found the early backer edition. He found the early backer edition at a Goodwill before the thing came out to retail.
Oh my God.
So he didn't sign any NDA because he
brilliant.
didn't back it on Kickstarter. So he just posted an early review.
Wow, that's such a great way to get around that.
Yeah, but also somebody sold it to Goodwill before it fucking came out.
That's
in
so
his video,
good.
he's like, somebody played this thing for like 5 minutes
Yeah.
because there's no way. It came out like 2 weeks ago, and I already
Yes, the
have
guy
one.
I was like, what the fuck is this?
Well, here's the funny thing: is the only reason that these reviews weren't total shit is because they were improvements over what they played before.
Yeah.
Like the funny thing is, it's like Engadget came back to say that the issues with the controller got better, but that's only because they were coming from the bottom. Like, you know, like they said that the UI had been cleaned and sped up a little bit. They felt more optimistic about the future of it. You know, especially because they were engaging back and forth with the fans so much at this point, the Ouya company. So like they kept saying like, we're taking customer feedback seriously and shit like that. So like they thought that like, oh, maybe they'll turn it around. This is the age of like companies being able to do that.
Yeah.
Other people were less friendly. Digital Trends said it was fine. They said it was built with love. It looks sleek and cool, but these praises were also heavily countered with the question of power and performance, stating it was only about on the level as current smartphones, and that it could never compete with the big three console makers out there, as you guys already
and
mentioned
then
before.
Surely a few years later, Nintendo would release that little.
I know, and totally eat their lunch.
Yeah.
But they had to rely on a pretty niche platform almost exclusively instead. You know, while everybody else is gaming on everything else.
See, here's the one thing I don't get. Like, okay, I do get the appeal. Like a cheap console for a home, it's not a console. It's just like something like it's like a gimmick. It reminded me of those Leapfrog things, but for slightly older kids.
It's like a Chromebook.
But like they're like trying to get this hacker market. Any sensible person with a computer is going to emulate any of this fucking games of the nostalgia era or play them on a computer way before.
If you can
buying
hack
them.
an Ouya, you can build a Raspberry Pi and run it for way cheaper.
Yeah.
You can get a Raspberry Pi for like $25.
Yeah.
You can get any Bluetooth controller for less than that.
Yeah.
Boom, that's half the
and
price.
you
of an
already
Ouya
know
right
your controller's better.
there. I know.
Yeah.
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 That being said, most other sources here brought up some pretty serious faults, especially as time started to go by.
But then again, this is also 2013. Like, hindsight.
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
has a lot to
Yeah,
do with it.
because it's like people are waiting for the because that's like it's funny that like the connectivity issues that Austin were talking about. Apparently, like they were so rough at launch that like some people were not even able to get online at all. And this is like after the thing has been out for its first month.
There's a video of Mega 64 pissing on the Ouya.
Yeah, that video is.
Mega 64's review of the Ouya, he goes, I can't get online, and if Ouya doesn't provide me a fix in the next week, I will film myself pissing on the Ouya.
And it just hard
then
cuts
a week later, he uploaded a video of an Ouya in a toilet and him peeing on it.
It's like great.
It's because we mentioned that's pretty small already library of titles were mostly just flooded with like that trash. Like they were wallpapers
It's like
or
a
crappy
fucking
mobile
App Store
knockoffs.
trash.
Exactly, because there was no curation of that store at all. Like like unlike what you would see on the consoles, the games themselves. A lot of the times people put them side by side and they'd work better on a phone than the actual console itself. Problems like this were making it. We're getting out there into the ether. Like the bad word of mouth actually started to spread at this point, and so much that it started to affect the most important thing, which is sales. So I know she said she wouldn't say how many.
They weren't focused on sales anyway from the beginning, so.
But we're gonna talk a little bit of numbers here. I was gonna say I was gonna ask how well do you think you guys think this did on store shelves, but it's pretty obvious. It is hard to say exactly because they're
Who knows
companies
how many
don't have
people
to
bought
reveal
it from
that on
Goodwill?
Twitch. Yeah, who knows? That could have been half their market. But market analyst, the NPD group, they described the Ouya sales as, quote, relatively light, without giving any more specific stats. However, a good way to see how this thing was actually doing was by talking to the developers who did release titles on their storefront platform, because they could get numbers of like how well their game was selling.
Yeah.
And reports of those, fucking bad.
Yeah, you could probably figure out some sort of average.
Yeah, in April of 2014, this thing's out for almost a year. Developer Matt Thorson, who he made Towerfall, the game that we're talking about, he stated that game, which was Ouya's most popular title at the time, sold 7,000 copies.
Holy shit.
The top-selling game on their entire fucking store was a measly 7,000 copies.
Now, into consideration that a lot of this shit is free probably or just whatever. So what? They sold 10,000 Ouyas?
I mean
12,000?
they had those they had the backers, I assume at this point got their kits, but like
okay, so altogether under 100,000? Because you said
I
there
would
were
assume so,
65,000
yeah.
backers.
Absolutely.
There's got to be a small percentage of them that didn't get it, plus like 10, 12 sales.
It's almost unbelievable. When I heard that their top selling game sold 7,000, that more means that a lot of the people who backed it didn't use it.
Yeah.
It's like you hear that. Like the funny thing about the Wii is that the Wii sold a lot, but most of the games on the Wii did not sell because like people played Wii Sports and they were good. I know
I was years.
So like it didn't have a good the funny thing is like I think between the PS3, the 360 and the Wii, technically the 360 sold the least by a very small margin.
Yeah.
But those games sold the best.
Oh yeah.
Like 360 games sold consistently better than PS3
Across
and Wii
the
games
board,
across
probably,
the board. And they also, made more on a lot of other things that this didn't have, like subscriptions or accessories or anything really.
It's so strange because PlayStation's such a big console. But like I don't know.
You mean literally? Or?
Yeah, PS3. And it's just always strange to me when I worked at GameStop and noticed it. Way more 360 games than PS3 games are sold.
And now it's like it's switched a little bit where like PS4 games are usually like the highest selling versions. But like it's funny that like
PS4 is just immaculate.
But you could it's great. But like you could have like 100,000 and 7% of people are buying the big game. I mean I don't know how much Towerfall was, $15-$20, but. That's rough. I feel bad for that developer.
Well, there's also
PS4 is literally my favorite Sony product.
Yeah, they probably sold a lot more computer too.
Towerfall was part of the
That's true, yeah.
Free the Games initiative or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was exclusive to Ouya for a little over 6 months actually. I think
it
was
hung around
9 months.
for longer.
I think it came out with the Ouya's launch in July of 2013. In I think April of 2014, Towerfall came out for PS4 and PC.
How did it do when it hit those?
And that was when he announced that it sold 7,000 copies on Ouya. Mm-hmm. And a month after it came out, it had sold 7,000 copies on Ouya, and I think somewhere like 35,000 between PS4 and PC.
Okay.
In a month.
In a month, and that's after it was out on Ouya for like a year.
So like.
Yeah.
That's
It's I mean, at least he wasn't like stuck on that platform forever.
No,
That would have been bad.
That's also saying
Also-
that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Now's a good time to bring up some other games that I found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That were part of that fun. Towerfall, obviously, as we've talked about. Duck Game was exclusive to the Ouya.
Was that really?
I did not know it existed till it came out
I
on
didn't
PC.
either.
And I love that game.
Yeah,
but
that game's great.
That was an Ouya exclusive for a little while. A game called Neverending Nightmares. I don't know if you've ever
I
played
have.
that.
I've never played, but I know of it. Yeah.
That was an Ouya exclusive.
Huh.
Broken Age was Ouya exclusive.
Fucking get out of here.
Mhm.
But that was kickstarted to be on like.
It was kickstarted to be on PC, but because they adjusted the rules so that you just
could be
couldn't
on
put you just
PC.
couldn't put it on
Okay.
mobile or consoles. It came out on Ouya.
That
and
thing's
PC.
on everything now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's on Switch.
And That Dragon Cancer, also another Kickstarter game that was part of this program.
Your favorite.
That came out on that game. I don't want to talk about it.
But yeah, that's kind of crazy. I actually didn't know. I know like Killing Floor was a Ouya.
Really?
I think exclusive game. The first one.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, wasn't it?
It was a special version of Killing Floor.
Okay.
It was a top-down, like look kind of like Diablo, like isometric version of Killing Floor. It was
Oh, weird.
specifically made for.
Did that ever come out
mobile.
off the platform as?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but it
kinda
didn't
funny.
look good.
But all right. So a couple months go by.
The Ouya?
Despite these initial reviews, things are like they're staying afloat. But they're still trucking. They keep on trucking. In October of that year, Julie Ehrman says that she wants to release a new iteration of the Ouya. This one with a better controller, double the storage space, better built-in Wi-Fi. This version of the Ouya.
Ooh yeah.
Oh yeah, the Duffman So this would be released on January 31st, 2014. So hey, I guess kudos to them for managing to get that out there.
They
even
did put
even
it
with
on
those
it?
less than stellar sales.
That was like 6
That
months
hit the
after the
shelves.
thing came out, too.
Yeah.
They've already iterated on it.
All right, we've got another idea. We're gonna make it slightly bigger. We're gonna make a better controller. They're gonna make, and they just keep going.
We're
and
gonna
now
call
they're
it
a console.
the Xbox 360.
It's just a PS4 with an Ouya sticker,
Sticker
slapped on
on
the top.
yeah. All the buttons. There's little like stickers over the buttons to make the X triangle and
Wait a second.
square,
It just
yeah.
feels like-
And then you pick it up and it's a PS4 controller with stickers on it. You're like, it still feels like shit. How'd they do that?
But we're gonna skip ahead a little bit here. This thing is just kind of floating along. I'm gonna jump to April of 2015. The boxes are out there. Players and developers are losing more and more interest in keeping up with this thing. The updates from the Ouya company continue to sort of stagger a little bit.
Yeah.
The Xbox One and PS4 are now both hitting their stride while doing a pretty great fucking job of enticing those indie developers that they said would never work with them to work with them. PS4 especially, and Microsoft has their ID at Xbox program. The Switch, this wasn't announced at this point, but like I think even the Vita at this point was probably still doing better for indie games than the Ouya ever did. Steam's doing its thing. Smartphones are now more common than ever. It's just like people can't seem to find a reason to be drawn to this
Wonder why.
device. Yeah. It is the definition of just reading everything wrong. So this is around the time in our story that it starts to show. News started to break that Ouya Incorporated was trying to sell the company because it failed to renegotiate its debt. So not looking so good for them. And this all after an earlier in the year investment of $10 million from Alibaba, the Chinese holding group,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, to hopefully incorporate some of their tech into the hardware too.
And by their tech, they mean tiny microchips, so they can steal all our
So you
trade
can spy on us.
secrets.
Yeah. I believe at this point they did finally start to communicate with backers on the future of the company as well as the unit itself. But you can only read that information if you're an official backer, which I'm not, because I'm smart and I value where to put what little money I have into. When I buy recycled game keys for Hatred. I truly value.
Listen, I
it.
backed a lot of stupid stuff on Kickstarter, but
Not
even
this, though.
I'm not that stupid.
Money number 9's one thing. Didn't you also fund Ukulele?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, Phil did too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a shitty game.
Yeah.
I tried to find a lot of these posts. Like, I'm sure that they're probably out there on Reddit or something, but whatever. I'm sure you can guess what they say. But yeah, I couldn't locate them. A couple months later, it was July 27th of that same year, 2015, it was announced that Razer Inc. had officially acquired Ouya's employees and content library, and that the hardware was now completely discontinued. You could not get them anymore. This is probably when the price suddenly went from $20 back up to like $100 again. The owners were encouraged via statement to then migrate to Razer's own micro console Forge, I think they call it.
Forge TV.
Forge,
that's what it's called.
yeah, the Forge TV. Since all of Ouya's games would be integrated into the Forge ecosystem, and that the actual Ouya brand would live on as a standalone gaming publisher for Android TV, as well as other Android-based TV consoles. This was all on the same day that poor Julie Ehrman would step down as Ouya CEO. So she's out of there.
Ooh, no. I stopped there for a second. I was like, I shouldn't make this joke. And then I tried.
Yeah, no, the fact that you sounded so, like, defeated when you did it just made it better. So the rest of their technical team at this point, like their developer relations personnel, would join the software team for Razer. Well, that gaming platform, that Forge TV, that was discontinued in 2016. Thus ending what was kind of left of the dying Ouya, while those signature titles like Towerfall and some of the other ones we mentioned before, Duck Game and stuff like that, trucked on to find new life on other, much more successful platforms. So at least there's a little bit of a happy ending for those devs, but otherwise...
Wait, you
this
meant
console,
they're working with Steam?
well, anywhere. Like,
Not a happy
yeah.
ending for those devs.
But,
No, they're working with Sony.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The Ouya hit its end of the road, and then kind of faded into obscurity, because it's funny, like whenever the Ouya happens to come up to anyone now, it's always like this, like, huh, oh, and then it's like what was that? Yeah. Like, you know, like it's like it didn't even fail in a way that was spectacular to a fun degree.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's gonna have the nostalgia for it as they will some of those bad consoles of like people
Like the 3DO that you mentioned.
well, no, I think that's pretty forgotten. But I mean, it's like, I think like even people, I think there's even a percentage of people that might feel some sort of ironic nostalgia for like the Virtual Boy, but not like this.
Yeah.
This is just forgotten.
I got some thoughts
Okay.
on where this all went wrong, kind of. So, the problem with the Ouya was that, like I said, it was essentially just an Android phone without the screen. And
it couldn't make calls or text people.
Yeah, and I think they were selling this thing on the hope that people wanted to make Android games for the TV, but I'm not even sure. Like, their pitch was so
Weird
that I don't understand what they were going for, and I think nobody, even including them, did. And
yeah.
there was really nothing to sell it on. They wanted to act like they were flipping the industry on its head, but they didn't put in any of the work to make that a reality.
Yeah.
It's like she said in that interview, the board wasn't special. Anybody could do it, and a lot of people did. After the Ouya came out, like, Chinese companies started cranking out Ouya clones like crazy.
Now there's like, those consoles are like, it was not a original idea.
Their vision of putting the power in the hands of indie developers was fucking the exact philosophy of the PS4 and Xbox One, which came out a couple months later and
they
buried
did it
the
right.
Ouya.
Yeah.
And they did it right. Like,
And probably had been working on those concepts for years.
Oh, totally. Before that, yeah, they were building up those relationships.
It's not like
Xbox.
they saw the Ouya.
Yeah, like
Ooh.
Xbox since the arcade, like the XBLA stuff
Yeah.
launched. You know, like it. Yeah.
there are plenty of games that can run on Android, including like all the old GTAs and a bunch of other stuff. And
Fortnite.
all Android devices have controller support now. A lot of companies like SteelSeries and stuff make Bluetooth controllers you can buy.
It's gotten so much better. Like that stuff is universal.
And there's a bunch of set-top boxes now, like Roku's and Amazon makes one and Apple makes one. Like
totally.
They pivoted in the wrong direction.
And
like,
those have games on those
They were
platforms,
ahead of their time there. They just didn't know what they were doing. Like you said, they read the room so wrong and went in the complete opposite direction. Yeah. And the issue wasn't necessarily the device so much as just the philosophy. The CEO, Julie Ehrman, it was one of those people that thinks indie development is the future. She complained about the cost of AAA games and the fact that they weren't taking risks because taking risks was hard when you're spending $100 million to make a game.
Yeah.
And again, she wasn't wrong.
That's not wrong, no. But
Putting the power to create into everybody's hands is not the way to solve that.
No.
You're not going to, like... Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo are doing a bang-up job of getting indie games on their platforms that are dope, but they have teams of hundreds of people
to make those negotiations.
Whose entire job is to go out there and discover indie games and bring them to their platform.
Yeah.
You can't just let anyone create a game because then you end up with a few tower falls and heaps of trash.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that stuff gets buried too. I'm sure there was a lot of people that couldn't even find the legitimate games.
Live store,
and there's also
and on the PlayStation, that problem is still an issue, especially on like mobile stores like iPhone and something. But it's just like they're trying. They definitely. They fucking did it wrong. Even for the apps, like they never got like a Netflix on that thing. Like like our Hulu. If they wanted everybody to have one box,
if it was a Roku that could also play games, that might have been a neat pitch.
Yeah, but they never leaned into either side hard enough.
Yeah,
and that fucking control.
Yeah. And I'll end with this. In the interview that we keep bringing up, there's one anecdote that I left out because I think it's a perfect way to end this whole thing.
It is.
Julie Ehrman compares AAA development and indie development to the television industry, saying
you hear the word television a whole lot.
Yeah, saying that indie devs are like cable, and AAA developers are like network TV. Cable allows brilliant ideas like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and Boardwalk Empire to flourish, and network TV is where you get shitty sitcoms that are meant to feed the masses because they need
Big Bang.
Yeah, they need to appeal to the widest audience possible. Yeah. But if she wants to use that analogy, fine. But then the Ouya was essentially just the public access channel.
It's. I was gonna say NPR, but like NPR's doing all right.
Good.
Yeah, NPR is good.
Good. No, it's definitely public access.
Yeah.
But that is
Ouya World party time.
But that is our Ouya episode.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that'll do it for today.
They should have got Al Pacino. Honestly, back to my deep cut from the beginning. He would have been a great fucking... Just have blind Al Pacino walk in. Ooh-yah!
Yeah, maybe they should have just ran this thing like a Tim and Eric bit, like a Cinco product or whatever.
They tried.
Yeah.
The ads for this thing were nuts.
Ugh. But I think that's it for today.
Yeah, that's a great
Thank you,
story,
everybody.
Guys.
Yeah, I think that was a fun one to sort of look into just because, like, even though they failed at what they're doing... in general, this story is still kind of like, hey, gaming is still doing better. Like the victory here is games and players. Like it's just like that. This is the end of their story, but everything else got better. Mm-hmm. But you wanna do some plugs there, Cowboy?
Yeah.
Cowpoke. I'm playing a lot of Red Dead. So.
Fuck you. Check us out on Hot Button Cast. That's iTunes. It's Grindr. That's Fortnite.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Roblox.
The Ouya store.
No, yeah. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that's good stuff. Hot Button Cast. And then if you guys want to plug your personal, I'm Chris I something.
I'm Restart Randy.
Austin Blakesley.
Yeah. And take care. Go play a better... Just go game on anything else but this.
Go buy an Ouya. Let's bring this thing back.
Yeah. Someone send us one.
Oh, also send us your mobile phones and we'll load them up with our own apps and then mail them back to you. You can email me at hotbuttoncast.
Just put a bunch of broken phones in a trash bag and sell that for $100. We out.